I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Tyrus. And this is the Fox News Rundown.
Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. I'm Jessica Rosenthal. More social media companies are facing congressional scrutiny, this time over the way they handle content for kids.
One of the things that is so disconcerting to us is these platforms know that they are being abused.
I'm Dave Anthony. It's the newest member of the Fox family, Fox Weather, an app that launched this week where they'll even try to explain the unexplainable.
There is no meteorologist that knows every single thing. You know, Mother Nature is incredibly humbling, okay? You think you know something, and then magically, Mother Nature does something completely differently.
And I'm Guy Benson. I've got the final word on the Fox News Rundown.
Last week, we saw a Facebook whistleblower come forward to tell Congress that Facebook and Instagram are harming young people, especially girls. Frances Haugen told the Senate Subcommittee on Consumer Protection, Product Safety, and Data Security that Facebook knows its products are harmful, but puts profits over people.
The documents I have provided to Congress prove that Facebook has repeatedly misled the public about what its own research reveals about the safety of children, the efficacy of its artificial intelligence systems, and its role in spreading divisive and extreme messages.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg said during an earnings call this week that good faith criticism helps them get better as a company.
But my view is that what we are seeing is a coordinated effort to selectively use leaked documents to paint a false picture of our company.
Tuesday, the Senate subcommittee that heard from Haugen grilled the public policy heads of some other social media platforms, TikTok, Snap, and YouTube, specifically about how they moderate content for and market to minors.
Snapchat was built as an antidote to social media.
Snap VP of Global Public Policy Jennifer Stout said they're automatically deleting content, a camera-based app rather than a text-based feed, and the fact that both Snapchat users must opt in to communicate with one another makes Snapchat different. But Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn said a man who sexually assaulted a teenage girl in Memphis connected with her on Snapchat.
They use the Snap Map location service. And I know you're probably going to say only your friends can follow you, but somehow people are getting around that. And these sexual predators who are following young people are using this map to get to their location.
There were some tense exchanges as well over what proposed legislation regarding privacy, marketing, and content management the companies would back, like this one between Massachusetts Democratic Senator Ed Markey and YouTube's head of public policy, Leslie Miller.
Senator, again, we are already doing this. And
no, I'm asking you, would you support
consistent?
We're trying to draft a law here. Would you support that provision being in a law that prohibited it?
Senator, yes, as we already prohibit targeted advertising.
Okay, that's
on
all we're
kids
trying to do, just get to yes.
After pushing all three companies over a proposed bipartisan law to amend social media liability protections over how well these companies protect child exploitation online, the subcommittee chairman, Senator Richard Blumenthal, said generic support of ideas without commitments just isn't good enough.
I joined in the frustration felt by many of my colleagues that good intentions, support for goals, endorsement of purposes is no substitute for actual endorsement.
So when will all the talk end and actual regulations be put in place?
I will tell you I'm quite pleased that we are beginning to coalesce around language for a federal privacy standard, an online privacy standard.
Marsha Blackburn is a Republican senator from Tennessee and the ranking member of the Senate Subcommittee on Consumer Protection.
I've worked on this issue now for right at a decade. And it seems that people are beginning to say, yes, we need to have individuals opt in. If they want to share their information, they would have the ability to prohibit a platform from using that information unless they give their explicit consent. Also, the platform could not boot you off the platform if you decide to hold your information private. Then we would have one set of rules for the entire internet ecosystem with one regulator, the FTC. And there seems now to be agreement on those provisions. So federal privacy, online privacy legislation should be coming forward before we get to the end of the year.
at Tuesday's hearing, members from both parties seem to be largely on the same page about, marketing to young people, content they shouldn't be viewing. There's so much bipartisanship that the Senate Judiciary Committee, if I'm correct, passed an act that would base social media companies' liability protections on how well they root out content that exploits kids. And yet, at Tuesday's hearing, many of your colleagues grew frustrated with the company executives for being, non-committal when it comes to actual legislation. So my question is, why does it matter so much if these companies are on board with what you guys pass, especially if there's so much bipartisan agreement on what's needed?
We know what they've been doing. We know that the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, is something that is on the books. They, as you can hear from what we are hearing during these hearings, what these tech platforms are saying, they're fully aware that they're functioning outside of the law. And they're very non-committal because they don't want to get upside down and cause themselves further problems. And they're trying to capture younger users, not lose these younger losers to a competitor. It is all about chasing the dollar. And so they're going to sit there and tell little white lies and try to cover themselves so that they don't get caught. But as you can have observed from the hearings, we're on to them. And that is why we're going to pass privacy legislation, data security legislation. You mentioned the Section 230 reforms, which deal with liability, which deal with preferencing of products, which deals with censorship of posts and of different sites and information. And it is why, on a bipartisan basis, we're going to move forward on legislation.
I want to turn to TikTok and China. I want to get your thoughts because TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, is a Chinese company. And as you noted in the hearing just this year, TikTok's privacy policy was updated to say they may collect biometric data. I believe you focused in on that, asking why they would need such data, including keystroke patterns. I think it's important to note TikTok is still a private company, unlike the others. Did you get an answer to that question, why they need this biometric data or keystroke data, or did you end up coming to a conclusion on your own based on information you obtained at Tuesday's hearing?
Because TikTok's witness did not want to give a direct answer to me or to Senator Cruz about this, you have to make the judgment call that, yes, indeed, they are capturing all this biometric data, your face prints, your fingerprints, your voice prints. They are capturing conversation that is going out over your speakers to your iPhone and to your devices. And they are building a copy of you online. I call it your virtual you. So what they're trying to do is own your virtual you. And by capturing and collating your search history, your keystrokes, your patterns, then what they're doing is replicating you so that they can predict when you're going to pick up your phone, what you're going to do with that device or phone, or what's going to happen when you log in, and what they should be populating your screen with when you log in. It is an enormous violation of your privacy. And they say, well, it's all done by algorithms. Now, with TikTok, as I mentioned in the hearing, their parent company is ByteDance. That company is owned in part by the Chinese Communist Party. They purchased a stake in ByteDance this year and have a Chinese Communist Party member sitting on the board of ByteDance.
Well, but no, that's an affiliate, right?
Yes, and there is Douyin that is also an affiliated company to ByteDance. And whether it is ByteDance or ByteDance China, what you're looking at is a grouping of companies. Now, to make it worse, some of the U.S. data that TikTok has is housed in the U.S. and in Singapore. And until recently, that data in Singapore has been housed by Alibaba, which is a Chinese-owned company. So the question is, and the question they would not answer is, what is happening and who has access to that data? Is it ByteDance? Is it ByteDance China? Is it Douyin? Is any of this data moving into China because you have programmers and engineers that are housed in China? And whether it was Senator Cruz, Senator Sullivan, or me, there were not straight answers given to those questions.
Senator Cruz did get the representative from TikTok to confirm that ByteDance is considered to be part of their corporate group. And that's important because the TikTok privacy policy says we may share information we collect with our corporate group. However, when he felt he didn't get a straight answer on whether a ByteDance affiliate was also part of a corporate group, he said this.
And that does not give this committee any confidence that TikTok is doing anything other than participating in Chinese propaganda and espionage on American children.
That's not accurate.
That's an intense accusation to make. Do you agree with it?
Yes, because they would not answer that an American's data, the data of our children, is safe in TikTok's care. And parents want to make certain that their children are not going to be exploited online. And as Senator Klobuchar brought up, there was someone that she represents, a family that she represents, that a child had been put in touch with a drug sale, a drug purchase that was made over TikTok. The connection was made over TikTok. We have so many examples of harm that has come to children. I have someone from Memphis that a child was participating in a TikTok challenge, a strangulation challenge, and the child died. The child was 9 years old. Oh. And these are harms that are there in what these social media platforms call the new public square. Bear that in mind. But they don't want to conduct themselves in a manner that says they have respect for the people that are participating in the public square.
Senator Blackburn, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is Guy Benson with your Fox News commentary coming up.
This week started out rough for a lot of us, dealing with some really bad weather.
Now I'm terrified. Every time the wind picks up now, I'm scared.
She is still repairing her Burlington Township, New Jersey home from Hurricane Ida's remnants, and a nor'easter dumped a lot of rain, flooding some areas there up to New England. Tornadoes did damage from Missouri to Illinois, and out west they got drenched by a weekend storm. Sacramento, California, got 17 inches of rain, the most ever recorded there in 24 hours. A week earlier, Sacramento had set a city record of 212 straight days without rain. And this was another problem.
Burn scar flooding occurs when all the vegetation is burned off on the hillsides. And because these fires, they destroy the trees, the vegetation, the duff on the forest floor that can help soak up the rain. Vegetation also holds the soil in place, so mudslides and other erosion issues can be a problem.
That's Max Gordon on scene in Feather River Canyon, California for Fox Weather, a new free app that just launched Monday.
You know what? Everybody does not get a chance to make history.
Meteorologist Jason Frazer is a co-host on Fox Weather live stream programming, weekdays from 6 to noon Eastern.
Anytime you start a new business or a new venture like this, you just never know what the reception is going to be. And it was fantastic to look down in the Apple iStore yesterday, and we saw that we were the #1 downloaded app. We were beating TikTok. So, that is a response not only to the Fox brand, but, what people had expected us to do. And I'm so, so proud. I cannot say it enough of our team and how much we have supported one another, how many different ideas that we've thrown up against the wall and said, hey, we're going to try this, we're going to try this, we're going to try this. But, ultimately our mission is to not only change the way that we deliver weather. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we save lives and, people know exactly what to expect whenever severe weather happens in their neighborhood.
The Weather Channel's been around a long time, and so you're going up against, something that's been established for a very long time. But when you guys watch the Weather Channel, did you guys think, they really ought to do this, or we can do it so much better by this and that? Is that part of it?
So I think any time in business, you look at something and you say, hey, we might be able to do things a little bit differently, or, there's an opening, there's an opportunity here. And, I think the beautiful part about Fox is we've always approached stuff and said, let's do this differently. I look at the way that we tackled, NFL coverage. I look at the way that we have attacked news. We are always bringing a different edge, something that was more creative. And, shameless plug here and talking about the app. I think one of my most favorite things about the app is something called Future Track, which nobody else has. The cool part about Future Track is if you have an event, let's say it's a birthday or an upcoming vacation, you can put in that location. You can name it whatever you want, and we will automatically give you updates on the weather up to almost a year in advance. So
no kidding.
Not only do you have a countdown that, you can periodically check up on, but you also know exactly what to expect. There's nobody else on the market right now that's doing that. And do you know how cool that is? When you have a nice little vacation, a little beach vacation that, you're planning, with your spouse or the kids, and, you can just go right in there and you know exactly what's going to happen.
No, absolutely. And I mean, all of us, if we're going somewhere, especially if it's somewhere warm in the wintertime, we're checking to see what the weather is at that place. But to have it already there is cool.
Absolutely. We also have this thing called 3D radar, which is also a new thing as well.
That is definitely cool looking.
Yeah. So if you have not had a chance to look at the app, the cool part about 3D radar is you can look into a storm and see how tall a storm is. Generally speaking, the more severe a storm is, the taller the storm is. We've actually color coded it as well. So the darker shades of a color, whether it's green or red, that indicates that the storm is a lot more severe than other storms. And the other cool part is you can track exactly where that storm is in your neighborhood, or let's say you want to check on a storm for what's happening with grandma's house. It's not in a two-dimensional, it's not in 2D, as I like to say. It's in 3D. Yeah. So, that is something that, again, isn't on the market. This is all free of charge. This is an ad-supported app. The other cool part about the app is the live stream. So, again, Dave, shameless plug here. With that live stream, you can watch us for 6 hours from 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. And I will say our broadcast is unlike anything other that's out there as well. You're going to see a mix of weather news stories, weather forecast, and we're also going to throw in a little fun as well.
Yeah, that's the thing too with Fox. Personality is a big factor in it, And for you, when you were getting this ready, I know you guys were working on this for a while. Mm-hmm. Getting to know your co-anchors is key.
Yeah. Yeah, and I look at it as a marriage, right? You don't want to marry the wrong person because otherwise, it's going to be a long day. And I probably spend more time with my coworkers here than I do with my actual wife, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that you like each other, that you're in tune with one another. And, the beautiful part about my colleague Britta is I feel like we balance one another. Steven also is the same way. We all bring different things to the table. I bring more of a news background because previously I was a reporter and I became a news reporter, I should say a meteorologist. So I'm always looking for the facts. I'm always looking for, what is the one or two things that people really need to know. Both Britta and Steven, they're scientists, so they're always breaking down kind of the science portion of the storm. What do you need to know? What don't you need to know? So, it's the perfect blend.
This was a big week to launch. You guys had, it wasn't just, nothing going on for a week and you had to make it up. You had on both coasts these big storms, especially the one that was over the weekend out in the Pacific and over in California especially. That was really something. And there was a term that I really didn't know, atmospheric river. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it actually sounds really cool, but I know it can be a big problem.
Yeah, and for those that don't know what it is, this happens a lot of times in California where you have a shift in the jet stream, and it acts as kind of like a gasoline pump. It moves moisture from the Pacific Ocean where it's warm all the way throughout the Pacific Northwest. So that's why they tend to get a lot of rain in October and even into November. So just so that everybody who has no idea what Dave was just talking about, what that is.
I didn't know what it was either. I was like, what the heck is an atmospheric river?
Yeah, no. We the other one we had to explain this week was something called a bombogenesis, and people think we were making that up. And I said, no, we're actually not making it up.
Is that the same thing as the bomb cyclone?
They're used interchangeably, so they're within the right family. But basically, it's all about a storm rapidly intensifying. That's pretty much the gist of it. And so, whenever you get a whole bunch of meteorologists together, we do have a direct line into Mother Nature. So we knew that if we were going to debut a new weather network,
you had to plan it right.
We had to plan it right. There was no way, we could have, been just talking about sunny skies. But, to tell you, to show you how crazy it is, if we would have debuted last week when half of the United States just had sunshine and high pressure was in control, it would have created some really, I'll say, boring TV.
Yeah, well, you guys, that's where you earn your paycheck. See, that's when you got to make the TV not boring, even though the weather's boring, right?
That's true. And most people don't realize this, but 250, out of, 365 days out of the year, there is no severe weather. So, this is, I think, where, you will maybe see our coverage shift a little bit. We will be a little bit more news oriented, in terms of some of the stories that we cover. So, it might be, a potential where, instead of maybe spending 5 minutes on a forecast about what's happening in the, in Louisiana, you'll maybe see a 3 or 4 minute story about how Louisiana is recovering from Ida and what are some of the concerns there. My colleague, Robert Ray, he did an excellent piece about the wetlands, about what was happening there and the scientists that are really trying to build up the wetlands. And you might be wondering, wetlands, why do I care? Well, I call it nature's natural buffer. Whenever you have storms that move off of the Atlantic Ocean, they usually pack a lot of rain, and you prefer that rain to fall in a wetland versus on actual land. So if you don't have wetlands, where does all that water go? And it goes in the city centers.
This is why it's cool. And there are, I noticed as I went through the app, there's a whole section of like learn videos. So there's a lot of stuff that was even like why snowflakes are bigger. Some snowflakes are bigger, 7 facts about snow. What's a blizzard? And that's very cool because I kind of geek out sometimes on things like that,
Yeah. And listen, I will tell you that there is no meteorologist that knows every single thing. Mother Nature is incredibly humbling. Okay. You think you know something and then magically Mother Nature does something completely differently. And, it's an imperfect science, but I have found that most of the audience is incredibly understanding when you explain exactly what has happened, why it happened, and what you learned.
There's sometimes been politics in weather. There's been a lot of talk more and more over the year or so, and now again in Congress and the climate change. You're a meteorologist. Do people ask you about climate change?
People do. Yes, people all the time, ask us about climate change. Look, it is real. Climate change is definitely real. And the beautiful part about Fox Weather is we are going to cover it. We're going to cover every single story.
It's tough because, it gets very political, depending on your view of climate change. So how will you deal with that?
Well, I think it's about just stating what the facts are. It's stating that, look, during Hurricane Ida, we had 9 inches of rain in one part of New York City. That is not normal. Why is that happening? I think when, as a scientist, you learn not to really approach them from a political stance, you just state what the facts are and you let the audience decide for themselves. And I think, many times, people want to say, hey, I'm this or I'm this or I'm this. And I think that's where you turn off people. I think if you are just the reliable news source that just gives people the facts, people will keep coming back.
All right. Well, it's certainly something big and starting new this week. Fox Weather meteorologist Jason Frazer, who is also co-host of Fox Weather Sunrise and Sky Dome during the week, 6 to noon on the app. Jason, congratulations, good luck, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Fox News Radio on demand on the Fox News app. Download the app and just click listen. When you swipe left, you can listen to your favorite Fox News talk shows live. Swipe right for the latest Fox News Radio newscasts on demand. Fox News Radio on the Fox News app. Download it today. Subscribe to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com.
It's time for your Fox News commentary. Guy Benson. What's on your mind?
The New York Post has reported that President Joe Biden is finally building the wall. No, not a wall at the southern border, a wall around his vacation home in Delaware. The report states that the Department of Homeland Security has allocated nearly $500,000 to build additional security fencing around the beach house in Rehoboth. I have no problem with this, of course. He's the president of the United States. There are security needs. There are undoubtedly threats against him, and Secret Service has to do their job. No issue there. But is it not interesting that at Joe Biden's vacation house, it's been determined that building physical barriers to prevent unauthorized access is an effective strategy of keeping people out? The Biden administration, despite presiding over one of the worst border crises in our history, continues to insist that they will not construct a wall at the border. And progressives often echo the refrain that walls don't work. They plainly do, which is why they're building one at Chateau Biden. There ought to be a lesson there. This is Guy Benson, host of The Guy Benson Show.
You've been listening to the Fox News Rundown. Stay up to date by subscribing to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com. And for up-to-the-minute news, go to foxnews.com.
Hey, it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars. It's an idea that seems a lot like Kickstarter called Build It. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Love Fox News? Click the subscribe button to get more of the news and opinion you trust. And click the Fox News Rundown playlist for the latest episodes.